I'd like to welcome you all to the model today for the opening of two interlinked exhibitions, Into the Field and the Nyland Collection. Briefly, before I introduce today's event, I'd especially like to thank Emer McGarry for her advice and invaluable support on the exhibitions. And I'd like to also thank the entire team who've been really working so hard on these shows for at least over a month now, between the development and the installation. So I'd like to, I won't mention you all individually because I wouldn't like to leave anybody out, but everybody's worked so hard on every level, from core staff to volunteers, so I thank you all for that. Today's proceedings will be brought to a close by our newly appointed director, Megan Johnson, who will say a few words at the end. Into the Field is an exhibition which brings together artists from different fields of contemporary art practice, whose work uses colour, light and sound as visual material to access a space of unconditionality in the viewer. We invite you to step into this field, to let go of the usual language and codes we use to understand art, and to touch a more expansive world of being through your encounter with the artworks. There are a number of key moments in the exhibition which I'd like to point you to. Visual artist Odey Curbelo and composer Norbert Vollath have created new work with the intention of growing an experience from within the field, both of whom have been invited to talk about this process. We're also delighted to present work by Helen McMahon and a series of early and rarely seen hope paintings by artist William McKeown. And finally, Olafur Eliasson's Colour Circle series act as a quiet interruption and a moment of reflection within the overall experience of the galleries. This afternoon's event will be chaired by visual artist Andy Parsons, who has lectured extensively in the UK and also who exhibits internationally, Japan, India, and throughout Europe. So I'd like to ask Andy to chair this evening's proceedings. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, Marie-Louise. Okay, guys, so just to introduce you to the panel, on my right here is Norbert Vollath, my immediate left, Tony Partridge, and my far left, Odey Curbelo. Tony's going to start us off by doing a piece of work that he's made in response to the exhibition, which is called Things That Quicken the Heart. After he's gone through his essay with you, then we're going to talk to Odey and to Norbert about the work they've devised for the show. So I'll hand over to Tony.
Okay. In his 1982 film, Sans Soleil or Sunless, director Chris Marker's narrator speaks of a Japanese lady of the old imperial court who made lists, the most profound of which, the narrator says, was a list of things that quicken the heart. The name of this courtly lady was Lady Sei Shonagon. She was the author of the Pillow Book, and she lived in the late 10th century into the early 11th century. Lady Shonagon's list of things that quicken the heart is rather short. It is as follows. Number 1, sparrows feeding their young. 2, to pass a place where young children are playing. 3, to sleep in a room where the incense is being burnt, where fine incense is being burnt. 4, to notice that one's elegant Chinese mirror has become a little cloudy. 5, to see a gentleman stop his carriage before one's gate and instruct his attendants to announce his arrival. 6, to wash one's hair, put on perfume and scented robes, even if not a soul sees one. These preparations still produce an inner pleasure. 7, it is night and one is expecting a visitor. Suddenly one is startled by the sound of raindrops which the wind blows against the shutters. There are just 7 items. Today I want to add items to Lady Shonagon's list. I want to add works by Olafur Eliasson, Helen McMahon, Odey Curbelo, William McKeown, Tumi Magnusson, Norbert Vollath, Spencer Finch, Jack B. Yeats, Paula Stokes, and Jack Doherty. These, for me, are works that quicken the heart, works that deserve to be on Lady Shonagon's list. Now, at the model reception, I've left a book into which I've actually transcribed Lady Shonagon's list of things that quicken the heart. I've added to this list each of the works in this exhibition, and now I encourage you to reflect. Then please add your own items to this list, either today or over the coming months throughout the lifetime of this exhibition. Please add on your own thing that quickens your heart. You see, I want to imagine Lady Shonagon coming here as a courtly ghost on the night after this exhibition ends. I can see her opening the pages of the finished book and looking critically through our list. What will she think? Would she accept our inclusions? I believe she'd be very critical. Just look at the brevity of her own list. Every single item chosen with, I think, deep thought and acuity. However, it is my view that the artworks contained in this exhibition will pass her scrutiny, for these are works that quicken the heart. Why do I say this? To answer this question, I will turn again to Chris Marker's film and something else his narrator says along the way. She says that absolute beauty also has a name and a face. For Chris Marker, then, is absolute beauty the same as that which quickens the heart? Is he saying that the ineffable comes into being and maybe fades out again before settling in us somewhere? Then, when we look closely, we see that something as a name and a face, as an item that we can add to our list, is then that which quickens the heart something that stays? Then there's a third thing that Chris Marker's narrator says, a thought that at first seems irrelevant to all that I've said here today. She says that the more you watch Japanese television, the more you feel it watching you. This seems jarring at first and absolutely irrelevant, and yet the statement, when I heard it spoken in the film, set my own heart racing. Why did it do this? Does it mean that beauty, absolute beauty, watches us when it quickens the heart? And is it its face and name that are watching us? It was the writer Luigi Pirandello who commented that his own words in his works take on a name and a face when they leave his pen, and that he, as the very author of those words, has no control over those words anymore. The words, their name and their face, take on a life of their own, a life that may contradict everything the author of those words ever believed in or felt. In this independence, the place where their beauty, is this independence the place where their beauty, their absolute beauty, lies? Plotinus in 200 AD spoke also about the pain that lies in beauty. That is why he says the good is always greater than the beautiful, for the good lacks the pain we find in beauty, even in absolute beauty. Is it from this pain that our heart is quickened? Do we as human beings need this pain? Do we need our heart to be so quickened by it? But it isn't only beauty and pain that quickens the heart, surely. According to William McKeown, one of the artists whose works are included in this exhibition, it is the moment where surface dissolves, where the appearance of what is seen encounters the invisibility of what is sensed. Here, it seems, it is the ineffable that quickens the heart. Can we express the ineffable, or is that an absurdity? Yes, but it is a believable absurdity, one encountered and described by philosophers, mystics, and artists over time, over centuries. Plotinus described it in 200 AD when he says that we can find traces or images of the ineffable in the ordinary life and read footprints in the sand that encourage us to seek the ineffable. Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet and mystic, says, "My pen breaks and the paper slips away at the ineffable place where lover, loving, and loved are one." And Kandinsky, one evening in the early 20th century, returns to his studio, and on opening the door he sees a wonderful and strange painting there in his studio perched on his easel. It is a vivid stranger amidst his other works, a painting all aglow with abstract colours, and it quickens his heart. At first he doesn't recognise this painting and wonders how this stranger made its way into his studio at all. Soon, however, he discovers that this painting was in fact his own, but turned on its side on the easel. Originally a figurative work, its figuration was distorted, magically distorted, by this chance placing on its side. Jean-Paul Sartre describes how a frightening face appearing outside the glass of our window is a magical occurrence that quickens the heart and in the process demolishes the laws of science and determinism. Something of the same sort occurred when Kandinsky saw his picture turned on its side in his studio. Thus there is colour, there is light, but there might also be wind rustling through the grass or the trees, or as in Tarkovsky's film Mirror. Here we see the wind shaking the grass or rustling in leaves, but it is elusive. As quickly as it arrives and shakes the tree about the place, then it is gone again. It quickens the heart, both in fact and in memory. Let me show you what I mean. I'll show you two instances of Tarkovsky's use of the wind from his film Mirror. In the first scene, Tarkovsky wanted a reason for the doctor to turn around that didn't strain the narrative, and in the end he decided on the wind. We find that the doctor's look is believable because of the wind. The second scene is a dream or memory from Tarkovsky's own childhood. For the film, Tarkovsky had the family house built exactly and on the same site as it was in family photos from the 1930s. And then he brought his mother there to see it. She burst out crying and said it was the same. Many scenes in Tarkovsky's films seek to quicken the heart. Often his images do not make rational sense and act more like a kind of ritual or revelation to bring you into a connection with some subtle part of yourself. For the viewer of a Tarkovsky film, this either happens or it doesn't. For me, it happens, even on repeated viewings. But in case it doesn't happen for you with Tarkovsky, let me take you through a few other film images and see if any of these have the required effect on you. How about the Taviani brothers' film Cowes from 1984? Does this scene on the Isle of Pumas quicken your heart?
Carusi, arrampicatevi in tappomici pure voi altri, face bene la pelle. Poi de corsa a buttarvi dentro l'acqua. Bella? Correte, Carusi, correte pure voi altri. Dai Valentina!
Aspettami!
Dai, bella!
Bella! Bella! Ecco, bella! Non mi tirare,
Vuoi andare anche tu, vero?
Dai, forza, dai, forza!
Incidentally, this scene is from a memory recounted to Luigi Pirandello by his mother. The film counts itself as a film of 4 short stories by Pirandello and a conversation between the author and his mother's ghost. For those of you who truly love books, please watch this scene from Sergei Parajanov's The Colour of Pomegranates. Does this scene quicken your heart? On Culture Night in September 2013, that's just over a year ago, I went to the Goethe Institute in Merrion Square in Dublin, where a German composer and pianist called Hauschke was playing some of his own pieces on a prepared piano. The piano was adapted using found materials like ping pong balls and clothes pegs and rattles and all sorts of things. And the following is a piece by Hauschke that is played solely, remember this, solely on an acoustic piano. I would not have believed this if I hadn't seen it myself. And by the way, it quickened my heart. Okay. about 700 AD, a rather special, very somber style of music was composed in Tang Dynasty China, and the Japanese emperors adopted this music as their own. After this and until the Second World War, it was the music of the imperial family in Japan, a music that was often played by musicians from a single hereditary family. Now, Lady Shonagon would have heard this music played in the imperial court. Will the ghost of Lady Shonagon accept any of these into her list of things that quicken the heart? After all, she's the ultimate arbiter of this, is she not? When she returns at the end of this exhibition, what will she think? I leave you with this thought and this exhibition. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. And maybe what we'll do if we have questions about Tony's talk, we'll do them all at the end after Norbert and Odey have spoken as well. So Norbert and Odey's work in the gallery is designed to work together, so there's music and painting working in sort of harmony. So what I'd like to do is ask you, Norbert, just to introduce the thinking behind your work and perhaps a little bit about how it was made. And then Odey can tell us about his painting.
So hello to you all. I'm Norbert Vollath, originally born in Germany, living at the moment in the north of Sligo since 4 years. The background of the work for the model here in this exhibition, Into the Field, was like that. I came to Ireland and I was confronted with new sounds. I have to say I'm in sound since I'm 4 years old, learning accordion, later then studying technically and theoretically and practically saxophone and clarinet. So anyhow, I was confronted with a complete new world of sound, which mostly came, in my case, from the ocean. I never lived at the ocean. I come from a forest land, growing up in a small town near the Czech border, massive forest, other sounds. So I started here playing still on my instruments, starting recording nature, because when you record nature, it's very important that it's silent around, that you get what you want. It means any cars, people, and so on are disturbing. What I found here were not many people, a lot of animals, interesting sounds. From that on, I was asked by Marie-Louise for the exhibition maybe to create a piece in collaboration with Odey, so I got work from Odey via internet on a photograph. I used field recordings, it's called, it means these natural sounds, and put some live played clarinets on that to give the whole thing a frame, and hoped it works with his work. Yeah. So there's a background shortly spoken about. My work, Submerged 4, it's called, because I have many submerged titles, because I work with underwater microphone. That's the reason to go under the surface, and that's the reason I gave the name Submerged 4 to this piece of music, or sound, how you might call it.
Brilliant. And we've got some slides of you making the work, so maybe you could kind of talk us through what's happening in this one and then the next. So the actual process of finding these sounds. Yeah.
You must be familiar with the environment where you are recording. It means I have been at this ocean called the Yellow Strand quite often. It's a sand strand, it's flat, you get access there easily. So what I was doing for the main track of these recordings was I was going there in the water. This is in street up, it looks otherwise, but was at the time better to make a photograph. And then I buried a hydrophone, it's called. It's a contact microphone which is waterproof in the sand, and the waves were going over it. It's more interesting when you do that when the tide comes in, because there's more power than in the ocean. Then the devices are, you have a small recorder, and there's so much change in the moment when the digital things came in about 1995. It was the change from the tape to the digital recording. You only have small devices with good quality, and you can do these recordings also from the technical side. Then when you get these recordings as a basic, the second step is you edit it at home at the computer in your studio, processing the sound. So you work on one hand with really natural recordings, but you never have a recording one-to-one. So you always react on nature. So and the process going on is very technically. Then you do that at home for editing, and the third step then was in the collaboration with Odey, put it into the room, but maybe there more later then. Yeah.
Mm. And you bought your clarinet because for those of you who've been up to the exhibition and heard Norbert's piece, there are the found sounds, but then there's also the clarinet that kind of runs through it as well.
Yeah, I mean, my decision has been to create a piece in a low-pitched area. Means that there are long waves moving through this museum. And that's the reason I tried to use this instrument standing over there, which is called a so-called contra-alto clarinet, and is very deep in the register. And this is on, I would call it a hi-fi recording with low frequencies.
Do you want to?
And
yeah. Norbert's going to give you
a short demonstration of the instrument.
That was brilliant. So, maybe now you've kind of introduced your work. Odey, would you like to talk a little bit about your paintings that are in the room with Norbert's work and about the kind of evolution of those in relation to the sound piece?
Yes. Well, my name is Odey Curbelo, and I'm originally from Cuba, but I've been living in Denmark for the last 10 years. And well, to make the connection all together, right? I was invited to be part of the residency program of the model about a year ago. So I was here in the studios upstairs, and that's how I became fascinated with the collection also of the museum here in the Nyland collection. And through Maria Luisa and Emer, I got to get a more deeper knowledge of what was in storage here. And then I was aware of the exhibition Maria Luisa was already preparing at that time, and I was invited by her to do a selection of the collection of the museum. And then later on, I was also invited to be part of the exhibition that she was curating in the contemporary part of the museum. And so now the exhibition has three different, or many layers, but I would say three main connections. That is the selection I had done of the nylon collection, and there is of course the exhibition with all the artists, and there is specifically the collaboration that Norbert and I had done for this specific piece. So in that sense, when I would like all of you, when you see the exhibition, to please remember that what you are seeing, it's visual arts. It's something that it doesn't have a language. So that is very important to remember, because as Norbert right now has showed us when he was playing the instrument, there is a language involved in art that is not always easy to explain with this that we are doing right here. So please allow yourself to be part of that experience. And that was also part of what I was trying to do when I was doing the work, when I was developing the paintings. I was trying to let myself involve in a process that is deeply non-logical and deeply non-language based. And that means that it's a process that is basically letting in this case, the pigment of watercolor play itself on paper. And of course, there is involved a lot of training that I have done through my years of experience, but it's also a lot of letting the sensitivity of the medium speak. And so when I got in contact with Norbert through Maria Luisa, who connect us, Norbert sent me a sample of what he was doing already at that time. He did these field recordings. And then I was listening to those field recordings and thinking about how could I, in a way, translate, or not translate it, but at the same time be responding and in conversation with that kind of work from my point of view, which was painting. And then it started this idea of developing a connection between that sound, that kind of feeling of sound, and the feeling of the painting and the feeling of the fluid of pigment. And therefore, this series of paintings that you're going to see upstairs is called, in Spanish, Estudios Orgánicos, which means it's a kind of organic studies of something that is happening. So in that sense, I was also trying to connect to that kind of feeling of what I felt when I was listening to those sounds of Norbert. That is something that is not closed, that is something that is happening in the moment when you are watching them. It's also something that is not closed yet.
And in terms of like both of your work, there is a very sort of strong relationship with nature. And is that something that you're always kind of engaged with in your kind of work? kind of throughout your careers, or is that specific to this, the response to this exhibition, this idea of using nature as a kind of a source material? Is that, start with you, Norbert, is that...
Well, in my case, I have been using nature, of course, as an inspiration. Before I was doing this series, I was working in a long project of landscape painting and trying to reactivate some interesting points of a certain tradition about landscape and painting and the feeling of nature in art. And that's also why one of the paintings in the selection I have done in the Nylon is very central to that process, which is Jade's Leaving the Far Point, which is a painting that for me has a lot of different meanings and speaks also in many, many different layers. And one of them, of course, is the impact of nature in the human psyche and in the spirit, no? And that was also something I was trying to catch in these paintings, this kind of sense of nature, in my case, not figuratively, but this kind of spiritual influence.
So it's actually kind of capturing something from nature rather than illustrating nature. That's the key for you then.
Yeah, hopefully it would be something like nature, something that can inspire also others when they are seeing the work. Something kind of when we were watching this small clip of Tarkovsky's film, when the wind is blowing, and you have this sense of something is going to happen, but it doesn't. It's just this feeling, no? And in that sense, that's part of what I was trying to do with my work, is trying to make the invitation so that something can happen inspired by nature.
Mm. And one of the things, I suppose, that I think is quite interesting about some of your clips, Tony, but also about your music and your paintings, is this idea of something transcendent. Do you feel that that's something that you wanted to get in those paintings and in the sound work, kind of a transcendence, or it's a kind of hard thing to describe, but is there a specific kind of feeling or emotion or physical sensation that you wanted to kind of prompt or set of them, perhaps, in the works?
I find that music in itself, or soundings, they have by itself immaterial, firm character. They are process and action in one, and it is like that, like maybe a big clarinet player in jazz, Eric Dolphy said, when you play the music, the tones are in the room, you can take them home with you. So this is one thing, and yeah. So.
And what about you, Odey? Is there a sort of the response that you're trying to kind of engender in the audience when they're kind of in the room there with the pictures, with the sound? Is there something particular that you wanted to, a kind of a feeling or an emotion or a...
Well, I hope that the feeling is the feeling of to let go. That's what is really important, I think, when we were doing this. For me, it was about also that it was an invitation to go into that room, to take a few minutes, and then to let go of whatever it is that you are bringing with you, and then hopefully something will come out of that moment. Something will come out of that interaction with the painting and the sound and the room itself, and then.
Maybe I could add something. Also, the music is not done like a classical musical composition, who deals with scales, who deals with a counterpoint, maybe, who deals with this kind of, I would say, rhythms clearly. This piece is made like a feeling piece as well, like I would say. And on the other hand, it has to be a piece which is no beginning and no end, because it is performed in a museum. The performer is not there. This is a tape who's playing that, and all this kind of context was in the sound then coming to the point that it has to be a moody thing, something which creates an atmosphere. That was my sense of doing that, and there was an atmosphere which corresponds with Odey's work. What I try to make a kind of sonification of what I felt there, kind of I would say movement, energy, color composition.
And a lot of those kind of those sort of words that you're saying there, they're words that are kind of disembodied, aren't they? Yeah. And but they're kind of words describing an experience. So we're kind of like using a lot of prose to describe the exhibition here. Do you think that the works in the exhibition are somehow kind of away from language? Are they not? It's not necessarily important for the viewer, the audience, to come in with a kind of primer of language. Is that accessibility kind of important for you as an experience?
I would say it is, because as we were talking about the other days, in contemporary art it's sometimes a bit difficult to have access to what is being shown, because you need some extra information to get into the works, to understand the work, if that word means something in art. And in this case, that it was also something that I was thinking doing these works, that it was something that I would like the viewer to step into the room and to just get in contact with something, that it was not necessary to even have a language to speak of. It's just it's like an experience. It's like when you are walking into nature and suddenly you have this moment that the sun is shining and there is water running and there is a second there, and that's what happened. There is no language there. It's just an experience, and I hope that was what we created over here.
I find it interesting in the sound thing that on one hand, the production and the processing of this is very in language, because you deal with technical devices, equalizers and software and things like that, and hopefully the result is out of language.
And just to sort of like maybe wrap up before we can take some sort of questions, really. The kind of physical sensations that you're kind of prompting there. Do you think, having looked around the exhibition yesterday, would you like to sort of like kind of map out how you feel that the physical sensations that prompted by your kind of your sound and your paintings? Do you think they're kind of like rolling out throughout the exhibition? Because from my kind of look at it, there is very strong links between your painting and your sound, and then the other exhibits. Is there anything you'd like to kind of add about that, perhaps? In the sense that, Odey, for you, looking at William McKeown's paintings in the last room, for instance, do you see a kind of a link or a commonality between your work or sort of common threads there, perhaps?
Well, in my case, I would say it is probably easier to see it, because, of course, the other artists are also visual artists compared to Norbert. That his piece is unique in the sense that it's the sound piece. And of course, it has been from Jade's works to William McKeown's work to Olaf Eliasson's work to Tumi Magnusson. There is, of course, a lot of influence by personal relationship or by professional contact with those artists. And it's definitely an atmosphere that it kind of runs for me. I can see something like that running through the show, and I hope that of course the viewer can also see that, because I think it's a beautiful exhibition in the sense that it has a flow into it.
Yeah.
So from the sound side, I would say it's very physical, because it is like that when you put the sound in a room, it's very important what you do with that room, and also how it corresponds then with the visual information. A room which frequencies are you using in that room? Where are the loudspeakers? Do you want to play something high-pitched, low-pitched? When you have low-pitched frequencies, you feel when you would turn this very loud there, you physically feel it. So you also can feel it, but not maybe like in a pop concert. But sound is physically because it's in waves. Then you talk about the loudness. Then you talk about which kind of timbre would you like to give the piece. Means a tone. I don't want to get too theoretical now, but a tone works like that. That there's an overtone structure, and you could give the structure kind of. I would say a timbre. You could say so. In that case, I was doing a soft, slow timbre. Because I was thinking that works with Odey's paintings. Yeah, and. The duration of the piece is important. So in that case, it is a loop that is played, and this is not like I said before, a kind of musical composition of a starting and a beginning, and maybe having something like that. It goes more like that, yeah. And also what happens in the piece itself, yeah. That there are tiny kind of movements in that piece, and hopefully I agree with Odey that the viewers and listeners maybe coming to that room come a few times and maybe discover always something else, because it's hopefully not static.
Mm. Brilliant. Well, thank you, everybody. Do we have any questions?
I think that the physical space is as much important as the paintings itself, because you have to let the space speak as well. And we are in an art institution, in an art room, and that means that every single part of the museum, every single part of the space is speaking in a way to the people or to someone who comes here. And I thought that it was really great that Maria Luisa gave us this space to actually activate it in that sense, because sometimes things or the rooms get too much overloaded with work, because of course that's what people should come to see, but they forget a little bit about that space in between that is also extremely important, that also creates a space to experience the works. And that, especially in the case of a sound piece like Norbert, it's very important that there is a space so you can actually sense it. You need that. So in that sense, I don't know if it's always the case for works like that, Norbert, but I think as we were talking, it was very important also for him to have that kind of to explore that kind of extension of the sound piece, that you can actually walk around the whole space and you will always notice differences of the different areas where the sound is playing. No?
Any more questions? No, so the question was about the nature of collaboration and if in arriving at the final work there were other works that were less successful, and if the process of collaborating was something that you'd kind of undertake again, you know, the idea of pairing sound with something visual. So that's two questions. There was another one, wasn't there? Two. We'll just stick with those two. Yeah.
The sound and vision combination.
Yeah, about the how I suppose the process of evolution of maybe pairing's the wrong word, but of kind of bringing together something visual and something to listen to.
Yeah. So I got the photograph, how I told you, the photograph of Odey's work on the computer. Then I was sitting in my studio, I had the laptop on, looking at these paintings on the computer, and then tried to get closer to it. Then we had, I would say, a rough version when Odey arrived. And then we were living for a week in that room and changing their life with live mixes, the sound thing, and debating it. And so we talked a lot about our backgrounds. We talked about, and I have to say, I met here beside really nice stuff from the technicians on till the curator, till the director, and you all. We have a really good talk together with Odey about our family backgrounds, our countries where we come from, and this all together we tried to put into atmosphere and in kind of waves, I would call it, that we both like. So there was some work done directly in the space as well, yeah. It was
No, and also that there were other works, other paintings before as well, but Maria Luisa, which is the curator, because she was of course the one that knew both works of Norbert and I before we met personally, and then when I started to produce the works, then I was sending her some images, and then from that she chose two of them. And then Norbert had seen some of them, but then actually the last one he didn't saw it until he was here. So it was very interesting because he was working basically from one image.
Yeah. So we surprised each other because he also not heard what I was doing there exactly. So we came from that, and it was really
and it's a very interesting experience as a visual artist working with sound in that sense, because I had never done it before, and it really enhance your experience as an artist when you are doing this kind of collaboration. You have definitely changed the way you think about making art afterwards. It's an influence.
So do you think you might look for other sound artists to work with in the future?
Well, right now, actually, Norbert and I, we have been just talking about maybe continue a little bit more the collaboration that we started already, because it could be quite rich. It could become much more interesting. No? So, yeah.
100% agree.
Sorry, so the sound responded to the visual. How would it be for you if it was the other way around?
Well, in a way, I tried to do that as well, no? Because when I got the first draft of Norbert's recordings, I wasn't finished yet with the work. So I tried to respond in a way to that, and hopefully there is this, you can sense that relationship when you are in.
I felt that was what did happen, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I find it's kind of strange. I could see the sound travelling across the internet quite pure to the sound as it is, but the images, like scale, colour correction, would be quite different to what the actual work is like. So I wonder, was that a difficulty for you when it came to the sound?
So just to recap, was there a difficulty in the translation of a big, in the case of Odey's paintings, the big paintings, only being available to you in digital form? Was that problematic in terms of, of appraising them in their?
I mean, it would be always ideal if you see the kind of real thing, But I think when you do this kind of work generally, and also when you try to make paintings or kind of music, you always have also to be the ability to think a bit abstract. So it was, the whole thing was organized like that we have this background concept, I would say, what Marie-Louise did right, but where our work was influenced. And the second thing was, just when I talk about the sound piece, it was not finished in a way that you could not change anything really live then in the model, because sound sounds completely otherwise on a headphone, the sound sounds completely otherwise in a small room, and sounds completely otherwise in this kind of room where it is. When you would put the whole thing or the sound in another place in the model, it would sound otherwise again. So it was clear that we have to work on that directly here as well, and we got the time that we could do that.
So you adapted your sound, sorry.
Yeah. No, the paintings were not, but that's what Norbert is talking about.
The gentleman was asking whether you adapted your sound, which you did to the room, but he was asking whether Odey adapted his paintings to the room.
Yeah.
So, but yours were kind of done.
Yeah, because there is a difference of what you can do with the painting in the room and what you can do with the sound. And actually, the sound needs that little space before.
And the room is a component for you as well, isn't it? Really?
Always integrative concepts. When you do something with sound and vision, are experiment often, and you try out this. So this is almost sometimes it is also not analytic really. It is a feeling thing as well. So you get the feeling for the work, you get a feeling for the room. And then you hopefully get a feeling for your own thing and change it, that it suits.
Right.
I remember about 20 years ago I went to a series of talks by a number of musicians and composers, and I was struck by how many of them talked about images before they played a piece. They would talk about the images. I'm just wondering, do you think in images when you're making sound?
So I suppose no, it's okay. So it's about the relationship between image and sound, and Ronnie was saying that composers that he's spoken to in the past kind of related sounds or compositions to images that they had in mind, and wanted to know if that was something that you did habitually, whereby you had images in your head that you reflected upon and then responded to in sound.
Yeah, not really that I had images in the head. I would say I'm not one of these who is born with synesthesia. That you can hear the paintings or hear the color. But I was reading about, before I was doing that, and reading for a long time, for example, about composer like Eric Satie in the 20s. He was making music for, it's called Musique d'Ameublement, which was done. He got a commissioned work for a gallery in Paris, and he should make music for furniture. And this means kind of a background music, but not in the sense what is now called Musak, elevator music. And then a second thing also was I find interesting from maybe not also from the visual, but from my processes, second work of Eric Satie, which is called Vexation. That means in translation torture. And this was a short piece, a motif, and he said this motif should be played 840 times from a piano player. And the piece lasted then more than 18 hours, and was first published and live played in the beginning of the 50s, organized by John Cage. And you have these things in mind, but you transfer it then to your own I would say things you like. I'm a reed player, I'm a wind instrument player on one hand. On the other hand, I try out electronics, and when I go on stage nowadays, I come a lot from improvised music, where often nowadays is live electronic involved. We try these things out, and this always goes in an ambient direction, you would say. So it's always a change also what the technical devices can tell you on one hand. So this all this together. So I'm working in that way, that try to combine all these things together in my way. But I would not say I come like a theory like Kandinsky or something like that, who's talking about visualizing sound. It was especially made with Odey in a way, so it means I have not this huge experience that I say, oh, I have done sonification of hundreds of paintings or so. The processes could be. The next time, if we could do that again in another place, would maybe sound completely otherwise from my side. Yes, this is also in another room. This is situative, made for that situation at the model with this room specifications, and with Odey's work there being in this lightning.
Are there any more questions? Well, thanks. Oh, one.
I think there is a huge discussion about that, because the way that color affects humans and the way that color is perceived by humans, it's infinite, really. So what we had tried to do is to try to make a convention that, let's say, yellow color make us happy, blue color make us lighter, dark color make us depressed, and so on and so forth. But the way those really affect us, we don't really know yet. So what it is interesting about color is that it's all the time changing also. So once those pigments are on the paper, they are reacting in a way, and they will continue to react infinitely. But of course, consciously, when I was working on those paintings, I was trying to reach a balance between the influence of the painting of Jade, leaving the far point. I was trying to catch, not to copy the palette, the color palette that he was using, but to catch some kind of combination of color that could bring this mood again. But at the same time, I was trying to activate the color in a much more central way, letting the color be central. And in one of the paintings, for example, there is a very direct combination of yellow and purple, which are opposite colors in the spectrum. And that means that painting is vibrating in a very specific way, because that's the color those are the colors that you see when you are looking to the light, and then suddenly an object is in between the light, and when the shadow becomes what you see after, when that's happened very much when the sun goes up. If you have an object when the sun goes up and you are looking at it, it's become, let's say, yellow, and then the shadow of that object will be purple. That is the principle of that, how that works. And that, what I was trying to do there was to activate this kind of perception, but in a big scale. And of course, that is the theory of it, but how that affects really people, or how that can affect specifically someone, it's something I cannot control. But hopefully it's going to be a reaction to it, and that is what color can do, no? There is always a reaction to it.
The medium chosen, watercolour, how important was the translucent effects, you know, flowing aspect of watercolour? How important was that to, you know, to combine with the music, as opposed to, say, using oil acrylic?
Well, in this case, it was, let's say, obvious, no? Because there is this fluidity with watercolor, and there is this translucent of the pigment that, in a way, for me, was a very good way to connect with sound, because it has the same thing, and also because watercolor is transparent, or you can explore the transparency of it so much, you can also create this sensation of that there are things behind other things, and that is also what happens when you are listening to a sound. You can sense that there are things coming after, because there is a rhythm and there is a space in between one and the second note, and that was a kind of equivalent. I was trying to find this kind of equivalent of sound effect with the pigment, which of course in oil would be a totally different form, or acrylic or other ones. So in that case, that was also something that was helping me to talk to Norbert piece.